Okay, so there's currently a Payday 3 ARG going on, and we can only assume that it's related to the Boys in Blue DLC because we're now less than 2 weeks away from its release. The ARG itself revolves around Dragan, who we've known has been coming to the game for a while, but is now seemingly all but confirmed to be coming with the next DLC. Though I still don't know if I buy that the character that we see at the end of the Donut Day teaser is Dragan. There's just something about the way that they walk that screams at me that this isn't Dragan. But either way, the ARG itself actually makes reference to another heister that could be making their way into the game in the future. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we know that the game's launch and the whole of Operation Medic Bag had delayed some content from being added to the game, so the idea of Starbreeze playing a bit of catch-up, if you will, and potentially going as far as to release 2 heisters alongside the Boys in Blue DLC doesn't seem too outlandish to me. But just to be clear, I'm not saying that we are going to be getting 2 heisters. All I'm saying is that just because the ARG centers around Dragan doesn't necessarily mean that Dragan is the character in the trailer. But anyway, if you navigate over to the Dragan Files webpage, which I'll have linked in the description of this video, you'll be met with a page that prompts you for Dragan's password, which is fresh fish. All one word, and capitalization doesn't really matter. There are 2 ways in which you could have found this password for yourself. Firstly, through the Gateway Report website, and secondly, fresh fish was actually a line from the Do Time to Get Time trailer.
Fresh fish!
Once you input that password, you'll be brought to Dragan's desktop, where you'll be met with a handful of folders, the first of which being photos. Within that folder are more folders. Clearly, Dragan likes to keep things organized, and you know what? I kind of respect that. In the best hideout folder, we've got some pictures of Dragan at the beach having a good time. You could go as far as to say that these pictures were taken around the time of the secret ending for Payday 2. I mean, why else would Dragan have his heisting mask at the beach? Anyway, the next folder has some pictures of Dragan sporting a grey suit, a deviation from his classic brown, and I guess that you could connect this grey suit to the trousers that we saw in the Donut Day trailer, but more importantly, he's holding onto the APK-7, which is likely to be a weapon added as part of the upcoming DLC. And of course, there's also a couple of pictures of Dragan with his mask on, looking pretty menacing for good measure. Then in the Swedish Mountains hideout folder, we've got some pictures of Dragan looking rather cold, and something that is worth noting here is that these are all dated 2023. What that means is that this is likely where Dragan was hiding out after the Payday gang was attacked. Remember, in the first Payday 3 cutscene, Shade says that she tried to contact the entire Payday gang, but only got through to the 5 returning heisters. And it makes sense that she couldn't reach Dragan if he was lying low in the Swedish mountains. I hope that as and when they bring back more returning heisters, we get little details here and there about each of their respective experiences during the attack on the Payday gang. It would be quite cool to eventually learn where everyone was and what happened and where they've all been since. But moving on, the next folder, titled Old Life, contains some newspaper clippings that, from what I've gathered, all relate to a bank robbery that Dragomir Mirsic was a part of, Dragomir being the actor that portrays Dragan. And that's all for the pictures folder, so let's take a look at the documents, and there's actually nothing to see here just yet. Prospect 1, 2, and 3 are all encrypted for the time being. I imagine that these will become accessible over the next week or so in the lead up to the DLC's release, and I'll be covering the contents of each of these folders as soon as we get access to them. So now feels like the perfect time to remind you to subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all of the future Payday 3 news. But for now, that does it for this folder, really. We'll come back to the CrimeNet mail tab, as I want that to be the last thing we speak about. There's an Opera GX tab that, when you try to open it, gives you an error message that actually reads as broken app, so there's clearly some brand banter going on there. But now we get to where the ARG continues. Both the secret and don't open tabs are password protected. We know that these tabs can be accessed, but if you try to brute force these passwords, you'll be hit with a pretty lengthy timeout. Now, for the moment, we can't seem to input any passwords, as everyone is currently being told that you have attempted to access this drive too many times and it has been locked for security reasons. I imagine that on Monday morning, Starbreeze will fix this issue and we'll all be able to try more passwords again. But actually, we don't have that many leads on what the passwords could be just yet. The first lead that I've heard a few people talking about online has something to do with the numbers on this picture from the Old Life Pictures file. And the second, well, we'll need to take a look at the CrimeNet mail for that. The majority of these messages are just little background messages to pad out the email system, especially in the junk section, but even even the ones that aren't too important are actually fun little references, like this email from the Gateway Report or these ones about oversized cutlery and payday loans. The email that could contain a lead to the password for this ARG is this chain here, where Wolf reaches out asking for the CrimeNet password, and adding that he had written it down on a post-it note but can't seem to find it. This has led some people to beginning to search for this particular post-it note. There are many post-it notes hidden around Payday 3, but none that seem to resemble a password that have been found just yet. I wouldn't be surprised if this post-it note was hidden in an upcoming trailer or something like that, but some other noteworthy emails include an exchange between Gage and Dragan that alludes to a custom Car 4 that could be hinting at a potential weapon preset associated with the Dragan character pack. Of course, we don't yet know how exactly Dragan is going to make his way into the game, or any future heister for that matter, whether they'll be released as a character pack or alongside a DLC as part of that DLC's content. We haven't actually got a new heister yet for Payday 3, so how exactly that's going to be handled remains to be seen. But going back to those emails, Hoxton asks Dragan if he's found their missing friends yet, likely referring to other heisters, and Dallas specifically asks after Houston. Remember that the attack on the gang happened just before the game launched in 2023, so at this point it's been nearly 9 months since Dallas has heard from his brother. And this direct mention of another heister being Houston, and being a heister that people have wanted back for a little while now, makes me think that if that character in the trailer isn't Dragan, which I don't think it is, could it be Houston? I'm kind of throwing that out there and letting you decide. I personally still think the walk feels a little bit feminine to me, but again, I'm not somebody who studied walks for a living. This could be Houston for all I know. I just want more heisters. There's also another email from this Lil Guy F fella. I don't know, I think I've heard of his brother or something like that. But anyway, I have no doubt that there's more to discover on this website, and as we dig deeper into it, I'll be sure to keep you up to date. I think it's also worth mentioning that in the privacy policy for this website, your Steam and Nebula accounts are tracked. So perhaps there could be an in-game reward for those who participate in this ARG, maybe that Car 4 weapon preset that was teased. Obviously, that's a long shot, but who knows. I've got to say that I absolutely love that despite Payday 3 not being in the best of places right now, the marketing team is still putting this much effort in. Your average Payday player isn't necessarily going to interact with an ARG like this, but it feels like such a large part of the Payday identity. Let's not forget that DLC 1 also had a website made for it. Even though the Scry digital website wasn't as complicated as these Dragan Files are, it's still appreciated. I've said before that being a console player meant that I had to miss out on a significant amount of Payday 2 content, and being a part of these ARGs and virtual Easter egg hunts was something that I always wanted. So I'm really overjoyed to see that this style of marketing and community engagement hasn't been lost, and I really hope that it continues into the future. Speaking of the future, if you want to learn more about Payday 3's upcoming content and potentially get a peek at the next 6 months of DLC and updates, check out the video on screen now, and I'll see you in the next video.